Bhakta Vrindan. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So shall we start? So, which verse are we doing today, Prabhu?
6:24, 14.
6:26, 14.
14, yeah, 6:14.
14, okay. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Aho nu Vamsho Yashashavadata.
Aho nu Vamsho Yashasavadata.
Prayavrato Yatra Puran.
Prayavrato Yatra Puman Purana.
Kritavatara Purushah Sa Adyash.
Kritavatara Purusha Saadhyas.
Chachara Dharmam Yada Karma Hetu.
Chachara Dharmam Yada Karma.
Yes.
I can read from you. Translation. Oh, what shall I say of the dynasty of Priyavrat, which is pure and very much celebrated in that dynasty? The Supreme Person, the original personality of God, had descended as an incarnation and executed religious principles that could free one from the results of fruitive activity. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. There are many dynasties in human society wherein the Supreme Lord descends as an incarnation. Lord Krishna appeared in the Yadu dynasty and Lord Ramachandra appeared in the Ikshvaku or Raghu dynasty. Similarly, Lord Rishabhdev appeared in the dynasty of King Priyavrat. All these dynasties are very famous, and of them, the dynasty of Priyavrat is most famous. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think we have done this verse in the next one also. Anima, Lagima, Mahima. So we'll do text 16 now. No problem. Bhagavatam, like anytime, you can keep on repeating, no problem. More piety. Itihasma Sakala Veda Loka Deva Brahmana Gavam Parama Guru.
Itihasma Sakala Veda Loka Deva Brahmana Gavam Parama Guru.
Bhagavat Rishabha Kshayasya Vishuddha Charitam Iritam Pumsam Samasta Dushcharita Bhibharanam.
Bhagavata Rishabhakrasya Vishuddha Charitam Iritam Pumsam Samasta Dushcharita Bhiranam.
Param Maha Mangalayanam Idam. Yes.
Param Maha Mangalam Idam.
Anushadhayo Pachita Yanushrunotya Ashra Vayati Vava Hito Bhagavati Tasmin.
Anushraddhayo Pachita Yanushrunotya Ashra Vayati Vavahito Bhagavati Tasmin.
Vasudeva Ekantato Bhaktir Anayorapi Samanu Vartati.
Vasudeva Ekantato Bhaktir Anayor Api Samanu Vartate.
Yes, probably you can read this one.
Sorry, movie. Translation. Shukadeva Goswami continued. Lord Rishabhdev is the master of all Vedic knowledge, human beings, demigods, cows, and brahmanas. I have already explained his pure transcendental activities, which will vanquish the sinful activities of all living entities. This narration of Lord Rishabhdeva's pastimes is the reservoir of all auspicious things. Whoever attentively hears or speaks of them, following in the footsteps of the Acharyas, will certainly attain unalloyed devotional service at the lotus feet of Lord Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. The teachings of Lord Rishabhdeva are for the people of all yugas, Satyug, Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, and especially Kali Yuga. These instructions are so powerful that even in this age of Kali, one can attain perfection simply by explaining the instructions, following in the footsteps of the Acharyas, or listening to the instructions with great attention. If one does so, one can attain the platform of pure devotional service to Lord Vasudeva. The pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his devotees are recorded in Srimad Bhagavatam, so that those who recite these pastimes and listen to them will become purified. Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya. As a matter of principle, devotees should read, speak, and hear Srimad Bhagavatam persistently 24 hours daily if possible. That is the recommendation of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Kirtaniya Sadahari. One should either chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra or read Srimad Bhagavatam and thereby try to understand the characteristics and instructions of the Supreme Lord, who appeared as Lord Rishabdev, Lord Kapila, and Lord Krishna. In this way, one can become fully aware of the transcendental nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, one who knows the transcendental nature of the Lord's birth and activities attains liberation from material bondage and returns to Godhead. Hare Krishna. Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. So, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the later cantos, we're going to see that even the recitation, actually in the first canto also we have seen, merely remembrance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his pure devotees is enough to deliver a living entity. If one remembers in Chaitanya Charitamrita also this mention comes when Mahaprabhu is in Vrindavan, that if one thinks of a holy personality, that itself is enough to purify one. So Lord Rishabdev's activities are mentioned here. So simply by hearing of these activities, one's consciousness will become purified. What to speak of anyone who follows these activities? The narration of Lord Rishabdev's pastimes is a reservoir of all auspicious things. Whoever attentively hears or speaks of them, following in the footsteps of the Acharyas, will certainly attain unalloyed devotional service at the lotus feet of the Lord. So you see, now that is a very important point. Following in the footsteps of the Acharyas. Attentively hearing or speaking, following in the footsteps of the Acharyas. So Mahaprabhu also says, like the holy name is all pure. But if it comes from the mouth of an impure personality, then it becomes like milk touched by the lips of the serpent. So the activities of the Supreme Lord, the activities and instructions of the Supreme Lord must be heard from a bona fide source. Like Srila Prabhupada mentions this, that in India, prior to Bhagavad Gita as it is, there were at least 200 translations of Bhagavad Gita. And yet, nobody became a devotee of Krishna. The simple reason was, all these translations, all the mentions of Krishna were from the mouths of non-devotees. Like so many times we have seen, in India, Krishna is a very popular figure. Like at least not now, but at least till 70s and 80s, in every home, Krishna Janmashtami was celebrated. Children would dress up as Krishna. Even now you can see that children are dressed up as Krishna on Janmashtami Day, Gokulashtami, and all these things. But in reality, nobody becomes a devotee. The simple reason is that though they are hearing the name of Krishna, it is not in devotional service. It is not coming from the mouth of a pure devotee. It is not following a tradition, not coming in parampara. And as a result of that, nobody becomes a devotee. Amar Chitra Katha used to run so many comics, sell so many comics based on the life of Krishna and pastimes of Krishna. But nobody ever becomes a devotee reading those books. So it must be done in the footsteps of it must be done following the footsteps of the Acharyas, not whimsically and not from unauthorized sources. So as a matter of principle, devotees should read, speak, and hear Srimad Bhagavatam persistently 24 hours daily if possible. That is the recommendation of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Kirtaniya Sadahari. So that is in Shiksha Ashtaka. Before that also, Kurma Brahman, he has said, Krishna Nam Nirantar Laiva. So Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, or chanting, they must go on continuously, not whimsically, following in the footsteps of the Lord. So all these pastimes are given. So actually Srimad Bhagavatam is written for the age of Kali, because in the age of Kali, people are dull. They don't have enough intelligence. They think that simply the maintenance of this body is enough. That is the goal of life. That is the perfection of life. Maintenance of one's body, maintenance of one's family members, one's job, profession. That is the perfection of life. So this is intelligence of a Shudra, one who laments unnecessarily. So to remove such inauspiciousness, one should continuously recite the holy name or chant or recite the Srimad Bhagavatam. So Srimad Bhagavatam is written in a very simple form. Actually, if you try to study the Upanishads, they are practically impossible to understand. only someone of the caliber of Srila Prabhupada or Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur would be able to derive the exact meaning of the Upanishads, or would be able to derive the true devotional service from Upanishads. Therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam follows the tradition of Upanishads and gives the direct glories of the Lord, but in a very simplified format, in the format of stories. So, however, Bhagavatam is still not to be considered like a storybook. Sometimes we see that devotees, they take Bhagavatam very cheaply. Like even when I was also a student, many times devotees would simply skip all the philosophy and study the stories. Okay, Rishabdev came, he took birth, he did this, and he went away. We like in those days, we would not touch the teachings of Lord Rishabdev. We would not touch the prayers of Gajendra. We would not touch the Hansa Guhya prayers. We would not touch the prayers of Queen Kunti. We would just gloss over them and go on only to the pastimes. That's not the way to understand Bhagavatam. The real way is to understand the philosophy here. So it is covered with the stories so that it doesn't become too difficult for us to understand. But stories are not the objective. The real objective is the philosophy hidden inside the stories. Just like you take a medicine which is coated, bitter pills are coated with sugar. But sugar is not the main objective. One does not take the pills because they are sweet, but because they have medicine inside. So if one simply licks off the sugar and keeps the medicine aside, he'll not benefit. So if someone just studies the stories of Bhagavatam, but does not go into the philosophy, one is not going to benefit. Therefore, it's extremely important that we study these pastimes and we meditate on them. Try to understand what they meant. So Rishabdev's pastime, the crux of Rishabdev's pastimes is the teachings that he gives to his 100 sons. So by hearing these pastimes, by understanding the philosophy of these pastimes, and by implementing them in our life, we will be able to perfect our lives also. But it all must come from bona fide sources. It should not be in the form of an entertainment lecture, but it should be seen as a proper, serious academic understanding. Hare Krishna. Yes, any questions? If somebody has questions, please raise your hand. We'll just continue. Yasyam eva kavaya atmanam aviratam vividha vrijena samsara.
Yasyam eva kavaya atmanam aviratam vividha vrijena samsara.
Paritapopatya manam anusavanam snapayantastayeva paraya.
Paritapapatyamanam anusvanam snapayantastayeva
Nirvritya hi apavargam atyantikam parama purushartham api swayam.
Nirvritya hi apavargam atyantikam parama purushartham swayam.
Api satyam
Asaditam no evadriyante bhagavati yaktvaneva parisamapta savartha.
Asaditam no evadriyante bhagavati parisamapta sarvartha.
Hare Krishna. May we go?
Yes, please.
Translation purport by Sri Prabhupada. Sri Prabhupada ki jai. Devotees always make themselves in devotional service in order to be received from the various relations of material existence. By doing this, the devotees enjoy extreme bliss and liberation. Personified comes to serve them. Nonetheless, they do not accept their service even if it is offered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself. For the devotees, liberation, mukti, is very unimportant because having attained the Lord's transitional loving service, they have attained everything desirable and have transcended all material desires. Purport by Sri Prabhupada. Devotional service unto the Lord is the highest attainment of anyone doing liberation from turbulence of material existence. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 6.22, Yam labdha Taptem Abham Mantrina Dikam Tatha. Gaining of this, one thinks there is no great gain. When one attains the service of the Lord, which is non-different from the Lord, one does not desire anything material. Mukha means relief from material one. Does not desire, Mukti means relief from material existence. Birla Mangal Thakur says, Mukti Ajanya Savati Samad. For a devotee, Mukti is not a very great achievement. Mukti means situated in one's constitutional position. The constitutional position of every living being is that of the Lord's service. Therefore, when a living entity is engaged in the Lord's loving service, he has already attained mukti. Consequently, a devotee does not aspire for mukti, even if it is offered by the Supreme Lord himself. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you, Prabhu. Yam labdha chaparam labham manyate nadikam tatah. So gaining this, one thinks there is no greater gain. Like for example, there are sometimes patients in hospital, with suffering from grievous diseases. Someone has cancer, someone has some disease or some disease. So the doctor comes, like for example, if a patient is, like suppose a patient is badly injured, he has like serious accident. Now the doctor comes and gives him a morphine injection or something, or some anesthesia, so that the patient feels some relief because the pain is mitigated. But suppose the disease itself is taken away, the injury heals up, or the disease goes away, the cancer is treated, the patient will feel complete relief. So even if there is some pain, the patient will be willing to take it. Say, okay, it's all right. At least the disease is completely gone. There is no disease anymore. So just like that, a devotee always aspires for service at the lotus feet of the Lord. So as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says in the Shiksha Ashtakam, Ashnishya va padratam penashtumam adrashanana marma hata karotva yatha tatha va vidhatu lampato mat prananathastu sadaivanapara. See, the devotee has attained the lotus feet of the Lord. So then he doesn't care for any other tribulation that might come in the path. So devotee may suffer, in the path of devotional service, there is suffering. The gopis were suffering separation from Krishna. So many times, like it is said that when Krishna performed his Ras Leela, some gopis were forcibly restrained by their family members. So that is suffering, because one cannot attain Krishna then. But gopis are content with that. So Krishna may be available, Krishna may not be available. So Krishna, so gopi, like Mahaprabhu is saying, Ashlishya va padratam pranashtumam adrashanan marma hata karotua. Either you crush me in your embrace or you make me broken-hearted by not being present in front of me. But in any condition, you are my master. So that's the position of a devotee. Because once the devotee has attained Krishna, then the material pangs become an illusion. The devotee understands that this is an illusion. In the very first verse of Chaitanya Shiksha Ashtakam, the very first verse is Cheto Darparamarjanam Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam Shreya Kairava Chandrika Vitaranam Vidyavadhu Jivanam. So you see, so Cheto Darpanamarjanam Vidyavadhu Jivanam. So this knowledge of Krishna alone is enough to deliver us from the material miseries. A devotee actually has no miseries, because devotee understands that this whole material life is like a dream. Now, sometimes when we are about to awaken, we are seeing a nightmare and we are about to awaken, we feel some relief that, okay, now this is just a nightmare, this is not the reality. And therefore, when we wake up, we don't feel any pain. So just like that, as soon as the holy name awakens within the heart, the devotee instantly becomes free from the miseries, understanding that these miseries are also just an illusion like his happiness. And therefore, he becomes detached. And in such a condition, the devotee then serves the Lord joyfully. So, yam labdhva chaparam labhate labham manyate nadhikam tata. Manyate nadhikam tata. There is nothing greater than this. So liberation is like that morphine injection given to the patient. It relieves the pain, but only for a short while. The patient knows that the disease is still existing. He knows that once the effect of this injection is over, he'll be again in pain. So just like that, a yogi or a jnani may work very hard. He may attain shantras, preliminary liberation from material nature. But in that condition, he cannot stay for long. Because as soon as material desires awaken in his heart, he'll again take birth in the material domain and again undergo the miseries of birth, old age, disease, and death. But on the other hand, a devotee, even though he may be apparently in a totally conditioned state, he knows that Krishna is now taking care of me. I only have to serve him. As Srila Prabhupada says, that we are just the peons of our spiritual master. So the devotee understands that he's only here to render menial service to the Supreme Lord. And in that way, the Lord will protect him. So just today, I was reading one of the lectures of Srila Prabhupada. He's writing that just like an electric fan, when you put off the electricity, the fan continues to rotate. But a person knows that very soon this fan will stop. The connection is gone. So just like that, as soon as the holy name awakens within the heart, a devotee may still appear to be engaged in materialistic activities, still occupied by materialistic desires, but in reality, the devotee has already cut his connection off from Maya. Now the past conditioning will drive him for some time, but very soon, as the fan stops, his material activities will also come to a complete halt. Therefore, as much as possible, a living entity should aspire to serve the Lord purely as much as possible. Or as Srila Prabhupada says, study the Srimad Bhagavatam 24 hours a day. So therefore, and you can see that actually what we are doing is quite small. We are just doing it 45 minutes, that too for only 5 days a week. That's very less. So as far as possible, take this session only as a guideline, but go ahead, take these books and study them yourself, at least 2 hours per day. Don't listen to the naysayers or the foolish people who may say that, oh, this is not necessary. This is complete nonsense. You must study the Srimad Bhagavatam and then chant. You must know who is the Lord who you are trying to serve. Then even the so-called liberation will become insignificant. For example, let's take the example of 2 ladies. One lady doesn't have a child, another lady has a child. Now the lady without a child may think, oh, I'm okay, I'm peaceful, there is no hassle. And the lady with the child may appear to be going through so much trouble, taking care of a baby, creating so much nuisance. But the lady with the child will feel happy. Oh, at least I have a child. That's the goal of my life. The lady without a child may feel some relief for some time, but as soon as the desire for a child comes in her mind, immediately she'll be miserable because she doesn't have a child. So just like that, a yogi may feel some temporary relief because the yogi has just given up the material existence. He has just given up material sufferings. He may feel relief for some time in Kaivalya, in this kind of impersonal liberation. He may feel relief, relief from the so-called Traitap of the material world, Adhyatmik, Adhidaivik, Adhibhautik, these miseries. He may feel relief, but not for long. As soon as some desire arises in his heart, he will be forced to take birth in the material world. Not forced, he will be forced by his own desire. Krishna will not force him. He will appear here to fulfill his desires. Because he has not served the Lord, he has no knowledge of the Lord. He is not fit in Vaikuntha. So he will come back again until he meets a pure devotee who delivers him. Hare Krishna. Yeah. We continue. Text 18.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu.
I think we've discussed this before, but it's a strange thing that, Bhagavatam in many stories, like after many of the pastimes, Shukadeva Goswami mentions that, this is the benefit of reading these pastimes. And even here in the last verse, he was mentioning the same thing. And here in this verse, he's saying that, these benefits are of no use to the devotee. Why both the things? Why not just speak one thing?
Okay, now that's beautiful. Actually, that's a very interesting question. So even though we may have discussed it sometime, I don't remember, but it's beautiful to hear. See, Prabhu, we have discussed so many times of Prabhupada gives this example, spiritual life is like a boat in the ocean. Okay. So spiritual life is like riding a boat in the ocean. So what does that mean? That means there are many waves of Maya. So what does a clever captain do? Now, a captain knows that whether there are waves or not, he has to steer the boat. He will continue to pilot the boat. But if there is some way he can avoid the waves, his life would be more convenient. His life would be easier. So if he sees that there's a big wave coming, he may steer a little bit to the right or left and avoid it and then go. The passage is smoother and he'll go faster actually. If the boat goes above the wave and then goes down, then it actually becomes slower, even though it may be in a straight line. So if he just avoids those crests and troughs and he just takes a little bit of left and right, he'll still reach the destination faster. So likewise, in the life of a devotee also, aspiring devotee, like a sadhak like us, there are many past karmas which are causing hindrance, causing trouble. So, they become a nuisance. For example, someone may have a chronic disease, someone may have some trouble in the family life or something. So, if they are sorted out, the devotee's life becomes easier. He can render more devotional service in a better way. Actually, it doesn't matter to a devotee so much. The devotee thinks that as the mercy of Krishna. But if they are not there, then devotee has an easier life. For example, a devotee has some health issue and he's still serving. So if this issue is gone, then the devotee can serve with more enthusiasm, more vigor. The devotee himself may not want to get rid of the disease. He may think, okay, whatever, I'll keep serving. But if the disease is gone, he'll serve in a better way. So just like that, these benedictions are there, they'll just purify you so that you can render devotional service with more vigor, more enthusiasm. So, and also they're like allurement to the materialistic people. So they may they're like Easter eggs. A materialist will read this and think, oh, this is nice. Let me try searching for some more. And in this way, gradually, he'll realize that these are all insignificant. I mean, at the end of Srimad Bhagavatam, so what is the arrangement of Srimad Bhagavatam? 9 cantos. By the time you finish 10th canto, you're already a pure devotee. Then whether you get the benediction or you get curses, it doesn't matter. Maharaj Chitraketu, he was happy when he got cursed also. Didn't care. So whether you get benedictions, whether you get curses, it's all immaterial. You are happy. So both the reasons.
Thank you.
But here this benediction is, whoever attentively hears or speaks of them, following in the footsteps of the Acharyas, will certainly attain unalloyed devotional service at the lotus feet of Lord Vasudeva.
Yeah, here it's a bit different, but I mean, in this verse, it was said that relief from the various tribulations and then its liberation is unimportant.
Devotees always make their devotional in order to be relieved from various tribulations of material existence. Yeah, they are nuisance. If a devotee has to go to work for a job, then he has to invest somewhere, then income tax is harassing him. Devotee gets troubled. So, lead a simple life, be free from tribulations. Various tribulations of material existence, especially mental tribulations, disturbing thoughts. So when one thinks of story of Rishabdev, one's mind is focused there. One will not think of nonsense. So material tribulations are already gone.
Yes. Thank you.
And also this particular sentence has another meaning, Prabhu. Devotees always bathe themselves in devotional service in order to be relieved from the various tribulations of material existence, meaning entanglements of material existence. Like, for example, if you see there's a non-devotee, what is the aspiration of a non-devotee? I want good education, a good job, then a big family, lot of wealth. But these are the sources of all tribulations. But what does a devotee do? He studies the Bhagavad, he chants, he preaches, and then he sees all these activities as sources of misery. Like nonsense. Who wants to raise a big family? Who wants big cars and big houses? Big jobs which require so much of effort. So naturally he becomes free from tribulations of material existence. He doesn't take them.
Hmm.
Like I know devotees who have 2 children, 3 children, and they're miserable. Oh, my child is not a devotee. He's giving me trouble. He's like this. He's like that. There are other devotees who are brahmacharis. Okay, like who cares? Keshavananda Prabhu gets angry if you talk about these things.
Yeah.
Like think of it this way. Like I'm taking an extreme example. Like Keshavananda Prabhu doesn't have a wife or a child.
That's
And you can imagine that he and I were contemporaries in the same ashram at the same time.
hmm.
Many of our godbrothers became married, got big jobs. Like one of my godbrothers, he has, I think, 1 or 2 sons. He was working in America. Then he came back to India because his son started watching some nefarious stuff and started talking nonsense. Then he came back to India. So you can imagine like a godbrother of Keshav Anand Prabhu is like in America, his child is giving him trouble. So he comes back to India and he says, sorry, no time to study Bhagavad or Gita. My job is tough. I have to work. I'm in IT 12 hours a day. Where's the time? I can't understand. Now imagine 20 years or like 24 years, Keshavanand Prabhu is studying Bhagavatam and preaching and making Vaishnavas. And another man is just raising a son who doesn't become a Vaishnava. And himself, he does not study Bhagavatam, does not preach or do anything. Now you can see the difference. 24 years, 1/4 of life gone. So this is nothing mystical. One may, yeah, in a sense, yes, on the whole, it is a benediction of Krishna, but this benediction was available to both. And we're not even talking of non-devotee, we're talking about devotee only. The benediction was there, one took it, the other one didn't. So actually studying the Bhagavatam and applying in your life itself is a benediction.
Hmm.
Like you don't do anything sinful, so where is the question of material tribulation?
That's true.
Yes, Merutra Prabhu, you had a question also.
Thank you very much.
A very basic point from my side.
Hmm.
Very, very basic. So, Prabhupada has written Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam, which is fairly made easy for everyone to understand, read and understand. But then there are certain purposes are there which you find very difficult to understand there also. And then suppose then we have got guide like you and other 3 devotees, they do guide us. But suppose we are not getting that. Then what you prefer? That we stop reading or keep on reading? Because somewhere Prabhupada is giving this the purport that you read. Even by reading you are purified.
Okay.
So
No.
what will you?
No, that's a valid point you're saying. That's a very valid point you're making. And I would like to speak a little bit on this. So you don't need anybody's guidance really. Trust me, Prabhupada is sufficient. In fact, my knowledge, I mean, who's guiding me really? I met Keshavananda Prabhu just 2 years ago, 1.5 years ago. Before that, I had to do my own R&D here. In fact, nowadays, unfortunately, we have reached a situation where we are mostly getting misguidance. People are just misquoting these purports, misquoting these verses, or in general confusing everyone else. If you ask someone how do we study Bhagavad, they'll say, oh, it's all right, you need to stay somewhere and then do like this. It's difficult, very tough, Prabhu. No, that is all nonsense. Anyone can read this. Hippies read these books and became devotees, became big preachers. So, I mean, we are cultured people at least. Anyone can study Prabhupada's purports. Now the point is about the difficulty of some purports. Actually, there are very few purports which are difficult to understand. And in my opinion, unless you are studying the Brahma Samhita, Prabhupada's purports are really easy. And Brahma Samhita purports are Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's. So these purports are really easy. If you are not understanding something, so what Srila Prabhupada advises is, you study the same purport 3 or 4 times. Go backwards and forwards. Read one verse before, one verse afterwards. Read 10 verses before, 10 verses afterwards. And try to see the context. Now, this is like a general instruction for everyone. So all of us can follow this. If you're not understanding a certain point or certain purport, just read more around it.
Hmm.
Or like, for example, here, Bhagavad Gita 6.22, this reference is given. So go to this verse and see what that verse is talking about and read that purport. You will find a kind of a pointer towards this verse. So read this 3-4 times, read it from different directions. And if you still don't understand, then you can ask some devotees. But like initially you may face this difficulty, but after having studied like this for a month or so, you will start finding the answers yourself. It's not difficult at all.
I quite agree. I'm absolutely with you on this point. The only thing is, in that case, you should continue reading. You don't stop reading because suppose you got stuck somewhere. Because I've seen past purports. Somewhere he again touches it. The same topic is touched by him again and again. And then it becomes clarified. But suppose a particular purport we get stuck in not understanding. Then this is we will putting 4 or 5 days only on one purport. Because we read it. So suppose not 100%. We have understood it 10%, 20% of it. And continue further reading. That is what my feeling is. Instead of getting stuck on this one purport itself, because sometimes purports are very, very, very long, and naturally it takes time to understand all these things. Other thing, you can read it and then continue with your further reading.
Yes, yes. So don't stop. You continue reading. Eventually, you will find the meaning. Like sometimes it may happen that you will really get stuck. But if you study the chapter, continue forward, you will find references, and eventually, when you come back, you will understand.
Yeah.
In the beginning, there may be difficulty, but later on, it won't be. So no need to worry.
Yeah, sure. Good. Good, bro. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good.
Yes, so we continue one more verse. Text 18. Rajan patir gurur alam bhavatam yadunam.
Rajan
Rajan
patir gurur alam bhavatam yadunam.
Daivam priya kulapati kvacha kinkaro va.
Daivam priya kulapati kvacha kinkaro va.
Astva evam anga bhagavan bhajatam mukundo.
Astvevam anga bhagavan bhajatam mukundo.
Muktim dadati karhichit smana bhakti yogam.
Muktim dadati karhich smana bhakti yogam.
Bhakti Yogam.
May I read, Prabhuji?
Read, Prabhu.
Oh, go
Yes,
ahead,
please.
Prabhuji.
Yes,
Go
please.
ahead, Mataji.
Thank you, Ji. Hare Krishna. Shila
Hare Krishna.
Prabhupada Ji ki Ji. Jai. Sukadev Goswami continued, My dear king, the supreme person Mukunda is actually the maintainer of all the members of Pandava and Yadu dynasties. He is your spiritual master, worshipable deity, friend, and director of your activities. To say nothing of this, he sometimes serves your family as a messenger or servant. This means he worked just as ordinary servants do. Those engaged in getting the Lord's favor attain liberation from the Lord very easily, but he does not very easily give the opportunity to render direct service unto him. Purport. While instructing Maharaj Parikshit, Sukadev Goswami thought it wise to encourage the king because the king might be thinking of the glorious position of various royal dynasties. Especially glorious is the dynasty of Priyavrata, in which the Supreme Lord Rishabdev incarnated. Similarly, the family of Uttanpad Maharaj, the father of Maharaj Dhruva, is also glorious due to Kings Prithu taking birth in it. The dynasty of Maharaj Raghu is glorified because Lord Ramchandra appeared in that family. As far as Yadu and Kuru dynasties are concerned, they existed simultaneously, but of the two, the Yadu dynasty was more glorious due to the appearance of Lord Krishna. Maharaj Parikshit might have been thinking that the Kuru dynasty was not as fortunate as the others because the Supreme Lord did not appear in that family, neither as Krishna, Lord Ramchandra, Lord Rishabdev, or Maharaj Prithu. Therefore, Parikshit Maharaj was encouraged by Sukadev Goswami in this particular verse. The Kuru dynasty. The Kuru dynasty may be considered more glorious due to the presence of devotees like the five Pandavas who rendered unalloyed devotional service. Although Lord Krishna did not appear in Kuru dynasty, he was so obligated to the Pandavas' devotional service that he acted as a maintainer of the family and spiritual master of the Pandavas. Although he took birth in the Yadu dynasty, Lord Krishna was more affectionate to the Pandavas. By his actions, Lord Krishna proved that he was more inclined to Kuru dynasty than the Yadu dynasty. Indeed, Lord Krishna, indebted to Pandavas' devotional service, sometimes acted as their messenger, and he guided them through many dangerous situations. Therefore, Maharaj Parikshit should not be saddened because Lord Krishna did not appear in his family. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is always inclined towards his pure devotees, and by his action, it is clear that liberation is not very important for the devotees. Lord Krishna easily gave one liberation, but he does not so easily give one the facility to become a devotee. Muktim dadati karhichit smana bhakti yogam. Directly or indirectly, it is proved that bhakti yoga is the basis for supreme relationship with the Supreme Lord. It is far superior to liberation. For a pure devotee of the Lord, mukti is automatically attained. Hare Krishna ji, thank you.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much, Mataji. So, very interesting point here. So, of course, what we have read is definitely there. So, Kuru dynasty is more glorious because Krishna was more inclined towards the Kurus than Yadus. And it's a very interesting point. So, like we read the Srimad Bhagavatam, we read Bhagavad Gita, we see, and we read Mahabharata, we see Krishna, we see more pastimes of Krishna and Pandavas than Krishna with his own family members. They're very little actually. Most of those pastimes take place after the war is over, and or sometimes with his own sons. He's talking about when his own son is getting married to the daughter of Duryodhan, Lakshmana, and so many things. But more glorious pastimes are the ones that Krishna has with Pandavas. In fact, the whole of Bhagavad Gita is spoken to Arjuna, not to. We can see that. And when you can see here, that Krishna is not so inclined to his own family, but more to the family of Pandavas. I mean, for his own family, he was living like a king, like their lord. He was living like their relation. But for Arjuna and for the Pandavas, he was taking even this kind of very lowly jobs, like a messenger's job. Messenger's job is literally given to a foot soldier. But here, Krishna himself did that duty for Arjuna. So we can see for Yudhishthira Maharaj, we can see his inclination. Now, one interesting point that comes here is, just as the living entity tries to serve the Lord is serving the living entity as well. Think of it. The very sustenance of the living entities take place because of the Lord. The Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is saying that I am the taste of water. I am the strength in the man. So in this way, Krishna alone is sustaining all the living entities. Aham bija pradapita. I am giving the seed. I am the strength of man. I am the taste of water. I am the air. Krishna is everything. He's giving the very elements from which the body is made. In this way, the Lord is serving every living entity. But to serve the Lord itself is very, very difficult. Because first of all, the Lord doesn't need our service. And then we are so impure, so we cannot approach him. Somehow or the other, if one is able to attain devotional service, that's a very rare thing in this world. Rupa Goswami begins Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu with this very first assertion, that pure devotional service is very rarely attained. In fact, he describes it as a characteristic of pure devotional service. If we see 10,000 devotees and we say, oh, everyone is a pure devotee, then we are stupid. Because pure devotional service is very rarely attained. Manusyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaye yatatam pi siddhanam kaschin mam vetti tattvata. So out of millions, maybe one will actually be a pure devotee. One may actually understand Krishna. So certainly, attaining this devotional service is very, very difficult. But in case of the Pandavas, they had attained it. So Pandavas dynasty is actually very glorious. This Kuru dynasty is extremely glorious. Because now we were discussing the context of these great dynasties. So Now, see, now this is very interesting because we are discussing the pastime of Rishabdev who comes in the dynasty of Priyavrat. Suddenly, the narration switches from Rishabdev to Kuru dynasty. So this context is very beautifully explained here. That the same Lord Rishabdev, who was in the dynasty of Priyavrat, the dynasty of Manu, as the Supreme Lord Krishna served your dynasty also. So do not consider your own dynasty or your own position to be less than the position of Priyavrat Maharaj's dynasty. Your dynasty is just as glorious, your heritage is just as glorious. Which brings us to one important point that Srila Prabhupada has made in the 3rd canto, that family lineage is also an important factor in devotional service. So great devotees usually take birth in great families. Srila Prabhupada, his father Gaur Mohan De was a pure devotee of Radharani. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur was the son of Bhakti Vinod Thakur. So their family heritage was definitely there. So we should be humble when we realize that we are born into non-devotional families. If we think we are born in devotional families, like for example, our Ram Tilak Prabhu here is born in the family of Sri Vaishnavas, that's a great heritage. So he should research his family and find out, what is the great lineage, how it goes. And then he should take advantage of that position and render more devotional service, because that is a lineage. So that means that thread is already connected to the Lord. So he doesn't have to struggle too hard. So he should work more smartly and get, complete the thread and go back to Godhead. But for those of us who are not born in Vaishnava families, we should be more humble about our position. We should not become overly proud, thinking that we are knowledgeable, we are devotees, we are pure, we are disciples of so-and-so Maharaj. No. We should consider our humble position that we are born in non-devotional families and use this as an opportunity to surrender more and more to Krishna. Just like Srila Haridas Thakur, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur, Lord Chaitanya would personally take care of him. But still, he never considered himself qualified enough to enter the temple of Lord Jagannath. Likewise, Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Sanatana Goswami. So you see, our precedent is set by our own acharyas. Hare Krishna. Yes, any questions or comments? Okay, then we stop here today. Thank you very much. We continue tomorrow with further narration of Rishabdev's activities. We'll complete this chapter and we'll start with the next one. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai. Thank you.
Thank you for
Pranam.
Thank you. Hare Krishna Prabhu. Dandavad Pranam.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Prabhuji, one question if I can ask. Sorry, I'm
Yeah.
late.
Yeah, no problem.
On one say we say Krishna is very merciful.
Hmm.
And on other one, we read that it's not very easy to get a service, direct service for Krishna.
Hmm.
Him being merciful, he is giving services to the pure devotees we have seen from so many Leela. Why does it say it's not very easy to get a service?
See, why will Krishna give service to us?
No,
He-
us to samajh mein aa gaya. We don't stand anywhere.
Hmm.
But pure devotees, like it says, it's not very easy to get service.
Hmm.
So
Because
ऐसे
Krishna,
क्यों?
because
Hmm.
Krishna doesn't take any service. Krishna is not like the lords of this material world.
Mhm.
If you give your boss a cup of coffee every morning, he starts expecting it.
Mhm.
He will think that, oh, you are his servant.
Mhm.
But Krishna is not like this. Krishna doesn't accept any service. He is serving everyone.
Yes.
So,
But pure devotee wants to serve. Matlab, the entire goal of our parampara is we are servants.
so try to serve. Find out. Find out how to serve Krishna. He will not come and say, serve me this way. No.
Eventually he will. Abhi to khair we are not anywhere, but eventually he will come.
So he has actually given this service. Like Srila Prabhupada has given a service. Jare dekha tare kaha Krishna upadesh. Amara agya hai guru tara hai desh.
Mhm.
Yes, so try to serve him this way. At our level, serve this way.
Mhm.
So he has given this service, but when you advance higher and higher, then you'll see, yes, but you see, who's taking that service also? Straightforward, but no one is taking that. हाँ, अब भगवान के लिए आप बोल रहे हैं, उनके लिए भोग की प्लेट लगाएंगे तो वो तो नहीं मिलने वाला। मतलब गोलोक में जाके गोपियों के साथ बैठ के उन्हें पान देंगे, वो सब नहीं मिलने वाला अभी इतने।
True.
But this service we can do. Krishna gives this service. But this is something that we need to understand, that your devotional service is difficult to attain.
Yes.
Love of God is not so easily attained because our ahankar gets in the way.
True. ठीक है जी, thank you प्रभु जी.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna जी. Thank you.
Hare Krishna,
Anand Ram
Prabhu.
Prabhu ji.
Pranam.
Yes.
हाँ, धन्यवाद प्रणाम प्रभु.
Regarding this discussion, just a point had come during our actual discussion. Also, like Mataji asked, so just a point came in my mind. Like there's a difference between when we worship also, like what is the consciousness of a demigod and the consciousness of Krishna. So we definitely worship Krishna, but Krishna doesn't require worship. He doesn't aspire for worship. A demigod may aspire for worship. So if a worshipper worships a demigod, so he reciprocates accordingly. But Krishna actually doesn't want worship also. Actually, Krishna doesn't want service also. So what he requires is just love. That unalloyed love is what he requires. So, but we are not in a position to give that love. So therefore, these all are the mediums of expressing of our love. Slowly we'll purify our consciousness, and one day we maybe express our genuine love for Krishna. So
Yeah,
love is the only thing which Krishna actually takes. Worship also Krishna doesn't take.
Love means service only. Prabhupada says that devotion means devotional service.
Yeah. It just came in my mind, like what is demigod? For a demigod, if there are worshippers, he becomes it gives him a lot of strength. We have some activities we do, then we get rejuvenated. Like some people say, while hearing music, we get more energetic. When devotees are doing chanting, or you do it chanting very nicely, or you read Bhagavatam very nicely, you get more rejuvenated. So demigods get rejuvenated when there are worshippers who are followers of them. But Krishna the follower or not follower, he's not interested in that.
No, Krishna doesn't need anything.
Because he is the source of all energy. So it's just love. Only love is the thing which is he sees into it, which can attract him. All other things we are actually, all other things are the mediums by which we can develop love for him. Chanting as a service we do, and then it becomes loving service. Reading also, it becomes loving service as we slowly develop the taste.
But in a long run, we can to your point, Prabhuji, if we are talking about even chanting or even preaching, we are actually saying we are doing service to him, but we are actually doing service to ourselves, no?
Yeah. हमारी chanting से भगवान को तो हम तो कौवे की तरह चिल्ला रहे हैं भगवान के।
हाँ, हम अपनी सर्विस कर रहे हैं कि हम प्यूरिफाई होके कृष्णा को कभी गोल बना दें कि सर्व करें।
अपना तो सस्टेनेंस मोड है। नहीं करेंगे तो मर जाएंगे। सस्टेनेंस में हम लोग जैसे ना वो हाथ पैर मारते रहता है जो डूब रहा है नदी में, सागर में डूब रहा है, तो ये हमारा चैंटिंग है, रीडिंग है। हम लोग एट प्रेजेंट तो मेरा सिचुएशन तो ऐसा है, हाथ पैर मार रहे भाई, जस्ट ठहरो करके कुछ ना कुछ हेल्प मिलेगा।
इसलिए मैं बोल रहा हूँ, यदि आप लोगों की इच्छा है तो हम नेक्टर ऑफ डिवोशन शुरू कर सकते हैं। Then that is only topic of devotion. वहां पे फिर ये सब नहीं आएगा, मोरालिटी कुछ नहीं आएगा। वहां पे सिर्फ भक्ति है उसके अंदर। मतलब व्हाट इज प्योर डिवोशन, मतलब जैसे हम अलग अलग टॉपिक्स कर रहे हैं, भागवतम में तो बहुत सारी चीजें आ रही हैं, मटेरियलिज्म से कैसे निकलना है ये सब, बट नेक्टर ऑफ डिवोशन तो व्हाट इज भक्ति, प्योर भक्ति, पूरा वही है। भक्ति के रस क्या है, इसलिए तो उसको भक्ति रस अमृत सिंधु, नेक्टेरियन ओशन ऑफ डिवोशन, एक्चुअली दैट्स द ट्रांसलेशन इफ यू से। तो यदि आप लोग चाहते हैं तो यू कैन डिसाइड एंड लेट मी नो, वीकेंड्स में हम शुरू कर सकते हैं।
ठीक है, that will be nice प्रभु जी।
Yeah, because you are going for initiation, आप लोग initiation की सोच रहे हैं, तो ये these are important topics. You must know, और जिनका initiation हो गया है उनके लिए भी important topic है, they must know कि initiation होता क्या है।
मतलब कि when we are talking about chanting or when we are talking about preaching और कोई भी service that we think is a service, वो actual में service नहीं है, वो हम लोगों का mean idea है to purify my own self so I can serve Krishna. एक
हाँ
तरह से हम हर एक डायरेक्शन में we are so लीचड़ कहते हैं ना, जो मीन होते हैं,
हाँ
वो
निठल्ले
है।
हैं बिल्कुल हम लोग।
जैसे वो कहते हैं ना, सौंक नहीं होती, वो किसी बॉडी पे चिपक जाती है, उसका भी खून चूस लेती है, जिसने उसको जगह दी उसका भी खून चूस ली, वो है हम।
हम तो मतलब खाली परेशान कर रहे हैं, हमारी चैंटिंग भी कौवे के चिल्लाने जैसी है। भगवान को मतलब भगवान दया करके बोले कि ठीक है यार, चढ़ मत कर, खुश हो जा ले।
हाय हाय, बुरे हाल है, सही बात है वैसे, सही बात। ठीक है जी, थैंक यू प्रभु जी।
हरे कृष्णा।
हरे कृष्णा जी, धन्यवाद, प्रणाम।
प्रणाम।
हरे कृष्णा, विनोद नाम प्रभु जी।
प्रणाम। प्रभु मैं जरा एक कृष्ण प्रपन्न प्रभु को कॉल कर लेता हूँ, कहीं से वो वहां से सानपाड़ा से मैसेज आई है कि घर का रिपेयर कंप्लीट हो गया है।
घर का काम चालू था।
अब पता नहीं, वो तो वही वो बोल रहे हैं कि मैसेज आई है कि कंप्लीट हो गया, तो एक बार उनसे पूछूंगी, एक बार चेक कर ले वो जाके क्या हो रहा है उधर।
हाँ, पूछ लीजिए, मुझे तो पता नहीं था चालू हुआ है करके।
वही मतलब क्या इतना जल्दी कैसे हो गया।
नहीं नहीं, पूछ लीजिए, टेक केयर, वो इम्पोर्टेंट है। हरे कृष्णा।